Excellent. So hello and welcome to the Q&A for iGilbert. I am Katie McCullough from Festival Formula and I will be your host tonight. And I'm hosting the delightful Adrian Martinez to talk about his feature, which is screening as part of San Francisco Independent Film Festival. Welcome, Adrian. How are you?
Hello, or should I say cheerio?
We're not saying goodbye yet. You've only just got here.
Oh, see, I thought it was hello, so there you go. That explains a lot on my last trip to London.
Short-lived, hopefully not. Hopefully you'll be able to come back.
Yes, I'm sick of this COVID thing, aren't you?
Yeah. I want to travel. I spend most of my year traveling to film festivals. So it's still brilliant that we can connect with filmmakers and festivals and audience members, but
Yeah,
nothing beats, being in a dark room with strangers.
nothing.
For the cinema purposes, of course.
Yes. I mean, we're storytellers, so you can't be a storyteller sitting around the campfire like this. You have to be in the person, like right there, it helps.
Definitely. So let's talk about iGilbert, because this is a story that I feel has so many themes, which, the story about isolation, it's the need for human connection, it's pressures of society, it's toxic masculinity, it's how do we express oneself, and also the memories that we drag through our life with us from childhood and our, experiences. There is a lot in this film. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of any of that.
Well, there you go. I've written your new bio for you. So where did this film all start? Like, what was the idea that jumped it all off? Because there's a lot to unpack there, but it's very kind of, they've fluidly kind of run alongside each other. And I just wondered, where the idea came from.
It came from a couple of places. I was sitting on the subway here in New York, and I saw this guy staring at this attractive lady sitting opposite him. And he just got up, and this is a true story, and he just started taking photos of her right to her face. And she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he was just very cold and impassive and just said nothing, which was very chilling. And then he just got off the train. It was kind of like a complete attack to her just with the camera. And I thought to myself, who is this guy? And where does this come from? And where is this going? Because I have a teenage daughter, and I wonder, like, who is she going to wind up dating in this crazy, disconnected world? So that was kind of like the impetus.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's quite a bold thing to see. Like,
Yeah.
I suppose it puts you being a bystander as well. Like, what do you do? Where's that line of, if somebody's personal space is invaded, what are you adding to it by going after someone on their behalf? It's
Right.
that I don't actually know what I would do if I saw that happen.
But
I
what
think I
would
would
you do if
feel,
it happened to you,
yeah.
Because that's the thing, we're getting so objectified, and there's so much disconnection, and I'm just wondering where it's going. So Gilbert is kind of like a person who is disconnected from the world, and he just tries to hold on and stay connected misguidedly through his phone, and then we see the results.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that I found really intriguing about Gilbert, is that he is, in it of himself, he's a character with lots of flaws, but they're kind of inherited or thrust upon him. He's kind of a result of everybody else's misgivings and kind of, just dumping their shit on him and expecting him to kind of just thrive. He
Yeah.
does, but not the way that anyone expects. So I think it's very prevalent of our times, because you're right, we are all kind of looking through our phones and, through our tablets, and, it's very stark when you can see two people having a conversation rather than two people looking at their phones. It almost
Wait, hold
feels a
on.
bit alien. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I suppose it's like, that, I suppose it's bundled in together as well. Like, you see a lot more like dating apps, or even just kind of apps for people to have a conversation, and it's because people, use that to hide what they're really like. I think people kind of have such a complex about, you know, how they look, how they fit in, do they not like the right things that other people like? And it's very I found it quite relatable actually, like,
Yeah.
you know. And I think, you know, when you've got a character, the thing I really appreciate when I watch films is when the audience is put in a very difficult position of following someone that they might not necessarily agree with everything they do, but you have that kind of empathy of, I understand why they're doing it. I don't think they should do it, but I can understand why. And I really felt that with Gilbert,
Oh,
because, you know,
good, good.
he he's a lovable person. He's somebody that, you know, you can see the heart in him, you can see the warmth, you can also see those flaws, but he wears them on his sleeve. So it's very easy, like, you know, there's a beautiful kind of nuanced moments in the film where he says what he actually wants to say, but everyone brushes him off because, you know, you present him as someone that is overlooked. He's, you know, looked through. He's, you know, he's a ghost fleeting through these moments. So
Did you
it's
say
very
you could see the hot in him? H-O-T?
of course, of course.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask you about any influences for the story, because of course city limits plays a part in the narrative, and there's some gentle correlation there. But I was just wondering if as a creative, if you leaned on anything else kind of just to influence you, whether it be music or other films or production styles.
Actually, the music came in much later. It was the hardest part to complete this picture. It literally took years to find the right person, and I'm so grateful to Gil Talmy and Gisela and MEC for putting together the music, which I feel is a character in and of itself. Um, Music on a movie of this size, as you know, is essential. Like you gotta get the music right, and so I'm just so grateful to them. Um, I mean, I have to say that this movie is sort of it's really a fairy tale, kind of like it's really a classic fairy tale because you think of Gilbert in the castle, you know, the overbearing mother, the princess in the upper floor. You know, the rooftop sequence speaks for itself, and it's very romantic and whimsical.
Mm,
So really, it's I Gilbert is kind of like a modern fairy tale. That's how I see it. And of course, there were other inspirations. I think of a movie before our time called Marty with Ernest Borgnine. He won the Oscar for it. It's in the 1950s, I think. And Marty is a lonely guy, lives with his mom. And so I was sort of inspired by that story. And you put it all together and you make this movie.
definitely, definitely. There's something. It's funny you say fairy tale, because there is something quite magical realist about it at moments.
Yeah,
Again, like going back to the idea that he will say what he really wants to say, but it could be misconstrued that he's not saying what we see him saying, that
yeah.
you know, he's kind of getting out of these sticky situations. But I think it like I said, there's a lot going on in it, and I think that's what I really appreciated, because when you see indie films, especially feature films, sometimes there are short films stretched way too thin, and they really don't have that substance, that kind of, you know, that kind of enough meat on the bones for you to really get into as an audience member. And sometimes we see it the other way around, where it's a feature film that's got too many things going on it, that you actually kind of at the end of it you don't really feel satisfied. Whereas I kind of feel with this film there were so many really interesting narrative threads kind of weaving around each other, but also at the very end it wasn't necessarily delivered to us on a silver platter exactly what happens. And I like those films. I like when it takes us up to a point and you say to the audience, what do you think happened? And that's how I can tell I've enjoyed a film, when I carry on the film in my head, that I can kind of go, well, actually, you know, I think she might have found it hard to begin with, but I think they might have rekindled a relationship.
It's actually right
Also with,
here.
yeah, yeah, and we have 10 kids. Come along. But I think so yeah, I mean it was something I really enjoyed. And I think as well you have to very untraditional protagonists, from a mainstream perspective. So, you know, plus size as well as BIPOC. And I found that so refreshing and actually more relatable, because it was a story that wasn't dressed up as, you know, something glossy. And, you know, it could have been that kind of, talking of fairy tales, Beauty and the Beast, to have that kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum. But actually, I also like the fact that neither were ridiculed to the point that that was a hook, that was a narrative beat, that actually it was just two lost souls that hadn't quite found each other at that point in time, but actually that they do kind of, you know, progress with each other. And I think that was part of the strength I saw in the film, is actually kind of two characters that can understand their strength, but from somebody else's perspective.
Yes.
I mean, how have other people perceived the film? Because obviously that's just my response. But have they mentioned anything about those areas, about representation or different story being told?
I think people have very visceral reactions to the movie, and they're very drawn to the ambiguity at the end, because I feel like that is life. You know, like it's just not, life isn't so simple. You know, but I was glad to take what's really a simple love story and add these complex layers to it. And I'm glad that you feel like it all interweaves and is ultimately seamless. But people have been really, really like moved by it. Um, they're actually astounded that I was able to pull it off at this budget. And um, yeah, and it's a very positive thing. You know, people are just blown away. And so I'm grateful. Just got to get the word out now.
It's good. I mean, I'm glad people are responding well, because you deserve it. It's a real kind of, it's a very unique, touching story. It's
Yeah,
quite poignant, and again, there's some really kind of very subtle, kind of humorous moments in it, which again, I kind of admired that you straddle that kind of, you know, that humorous element, but then also that poignancy. Because you could have just made this a goofy film. You could have just made this that, you know,
I
Gilbert could
had
go
that
around.
thought.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it might have been easier to shoot, because it would literally just be him shooting loads of, you know, attractive females on his iPhone. But um, you know, there was a bigger story to tell, and it's definitely there. And there's a line in the film which I think had so much poignancy. And I'm not sure if anyone's kind of gone into depth with you with this film as much as I'm going to be picking out lines, but um, the line is, "It's really hard to be a man when you spend all your time trying to kill a ghost." And I feel like anyone in that film could have said that line and it ring true for the narrative arc, because of all of the trauma that they're kind of carrying. But obviously for Gilbert, it's a literal translation of his viewpoint.
Yes.
But everyone in that film is harboring some trauma, no matter how small. And I just found that quite poignant, because, you know, that could have been said by anyone, but it would still have had that kind of, you know, gravitas. But yeah, I mean,
Thank you for saying that. It was inspired by this line that Samuel Beckett once said that the air is full of our cries, but habit is a great deadener. Um, and I was very sort of moved by that. And when you walk around, you see people, you know, there's a lot going on. You just know, you can see it in their faces.
yeah.
So this movie's an attempt to reveal what's behind one face.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, all these characters have their own faults, but they kind of wear them in a way that people can either take hold of them or they can just ignore them, which
Yeah,
is why, you know, when you have the relationship between the couple start, is, you know, you've seen them at their lowest ebbs, and they can kind of help each other and build each other back up.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so going to, you know, from the narrative side, but actually going to the production side, um, you covered a lot of roles in this film, like a big old roll call. So writer, director, producer, actor. Have I missed anything out?
I made the cereal.
So, I mean, what have you learned about taking on all those tasks, apart from probably not doing it ever again?
Yes, don't do it again with your own money. That's very important. Um, I told my kid, listen, great news. Daddy's making a movie, but the bad news is you're not going to college. She's like, what? Um, but yeah, it was very difficult to do. And it was kind of like, I did it because I had a window. I'm primarily an actor, and I had this window, and I wanted to do the movie, and I felt like, listen, just do it, just do it. Not really knowing all I was getting myself involved with, the all the different complexities and demands. I remember just before the love scene with Jana, my line producer came up to me like, "You have to sign these checks before lunch. I have to do a scene here. What are you doing?" I know, but if we don't sign the checks before lunch, they would. And I was like, "Holy shit!" So I'm like signing checks, like it's just weird stuff like that. I hate producing. It was very difficult. Um, um, but my favorite part was just directing and talking to the actors, because that I can do. I know the price we pay to be performers, and I understand how hard it is, and how each actor is like a fingerprint, extremely unique, and you have to approach each actor from where they are and what they need. And I enjoy that. That came easily. The writing was, of course, a miserable, lonely process. The acting is something I've done before, and I felt a connection to Gilbert, so I was able to pretty much do that. But producing, man, yeah, especially when with your own money, you just every dollar counts, and I remember somebody came up to me, we need tennis balls. What? We need tennis balls, because we have to put the balls down for the camera so it doesn't make a sound. All right, get tennis balls. And then like the next day there was like a crate of tennis balls. Like we only have one camera. And so I started thinking about how much did the tennis balls cost? Like meanwhile I'm supposed to be thinking of the next scene, and some
Yeah.
weird stuff goes on. I don't know how Chaplin did it, but it's definitely something that um, I'm glad I went through it, but I wouldn't do it again with my own money.
Okay. Well, there's a caveat there because you said not with your own money. So it means that you would happily take on the role as producer.
I would. I'm because you want things done, and you want things done right, especially if it's a story that you've written, you're passionate about. You don't want, it to turn out to be like, Jaws 7 or something when you're not doing Jaws 7. You're doing, a character-driven story. So, yeah, I'll do it, but I really do want my kid to go to college, so not with my own money.
Well, you heard it here first. Adrian's taking on calls to be a producer for any projects as long as the money's there.
And look, we have an imaginary call right now.
Yeah. I mean, were you part of every step of the process? Because obviously, being a writer and director and being the lead in it, I mean, in terms of, casting, were you part of the casting process for the other characters? And were you
Yes.
always going to be Gilbert? Was there ever a kind of a moment where you thought, I'm writing this, I'm directing it, but actually, I want to give this to someone else? Or did you always kind of have that kind of in place?
Well, Bradley Cooper said no. Um,
He would have been rubbish.
um, but no, yeah, I was in it every step of the way. Uh, Good story for you cinephiles out there. So the movie, I wrote it, and then I sort of took it to the writing group run by Jose Rivera, who was Oscar nominated for The Motorcycle Diaries. And out of his heart, really, without any money, he runs a writing group at the former home of Rip Torn.
Okay.
Yeah, and the home, it's in Chelsea. It's now run by Tony Torn, his son, and Geraldine Page and Rip Torn. They ran this home as a sort of like an actor's sanctuary. So, Paul Newman and all these great performers would go there, work on their plays before doing them. So there, I brought in iGilbert that would, read scenes from the play, and with other actors and creators, we would just kind of like exchange ideas about the story and give their thoughts. So the very, very first rough cut was there in that house. Um, so I'm very grateful to Tony Torn, his Rip's son, and Rip, and for allowing me to do uh, the workshops there. And most of what was filmed in the building was in Rip Torn's home. I mean,
Oh,
we wound
right.
up shooting most of the interiors in that building. Um, so
Oh,
it's blessed by a great cinematic history. The film.
amazing. So
You
did
know.
you find, so when it came to casting, did you have the script as the shooting script ready
Yeah,
to go?
yeah, it was ready to go. I mean, I thought I'd cast myself. I had three callbacks with myself. The
Very
first,
strong copy on the final meeting to
yeah,
decide. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And then of course Dasha is amazing. I mean, Dasha is just a beautiful, talented star. I mean, I think the world of her. She's going to be in Disney's In the Heights this year, and she's just terrific. I'm just so proud of her. And Raul Castillo, we've seen him in a ton of things in indie films and HBO. And um, I was going to have Rita Moreno as my mom, but at the last moment, she wasn't able to do it. So Cora Santiago, who stepped in to play my mom, she did it with just like 3 days notice.
Whoa.
3 days, yeah. The good news is you're playing my mom. The bad news is I need you tomorrow.
She's brilliant though. Like
Yeah,
she has that kind of inner angst like down to a T. Like when she releases it for a very, rare glimpse and she smashes the plates, it's just you just want to scoop her up and hug her and
yeah,
just kind of like, oh, that's
absolutely. Just heart, and I won't say what scene, but the scene where she's like really upset, it's just heartbreaking. And of course, Emilio Delgado, who played my dad, we know him from Sesame Street, and here he is going completely taking a huge risk and really reinventing himself as a performer. Just totally nails the Chaplin-esque character of Rodolfo. So proud of
Mm.
him, so proud of everybody in the movie. uh yeah, and so yeah, Bernard Telsey's office, they helped me out, and they helped me secure the leads in the film.
That's good. That's so good. And it really shows as well, like um there's the chemistry between the actors, but you can kind of see the characterization coming through rather than an actor just reading lines. You're seeing a fully dimensional kind of character form in front of you, and it's a real joy to watch. It really is.
And the fact that they did it with zero rehearsal, because by the time this was all put together, there was zero time for rehearsal. And so Dasha and Raul were doing love scenes and fight scenes and this and that with zero rehearsal, shot out of a cannon. Wonderful. They just literally just opened their chest and dove right in and gave me everything they had. And that's all you can hope for.
It's brilliant. It really does show. Do you have a favorite moment in the film?
Um, oh, that's a good one. Um, um, well, I love the flashback when we see young Gilbert sort of learning about the use of camera,
Yeah.
and um,
Yeah.
um, and of course, the singer in that flashback is my wife, MEC.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I was happy to see her on the screen, and so proud of her. She wrote that song again with 1 day's notice, because I had told her we had had about a few weeks to get it right, and then the locations changed, and I just needed it the next day, and she pulled it out of her brilliant mind and gave me this great song in the flashback. And but everyone in that scene was just spot on perfect, from the kid to Rodolfo to Socorro. They all just nailed it, and it looked great. Kudos to John Carr, my DP. And yeah, I thought that was a scene I was really proud of.
That's nice, because that's almost like it's a, emotional connection to the film rather than just a creative one. It's very
Yeah.
sweet. Mine is when she asks him if he wants a turkey sandwich, and he goes off on this massive tangent about sex, which it really made me chuckle. But also, again, like with that kind of ambiguity of, is he actually saying this, or is she hearing something different? And that was a moment where I saw that kind of connection between the two of them really start, where she really did see him.
I
So
maintain she really wanted sex. That's it.
yeah.
I'm standing by that.
It does now make me think, if somebody asks me if I want a sandwich, I'm just gonna be like, do they mean a sandwich? I refuse
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
um
Wait,
so
you
I
want fish and chips?
Yeah. With some mushy peas. Oh, okay. So I always dread asking creatives this question, because I know how frustrating it can be. But are you working on another project at the moment?
I am. I am.
And
It's
can you talk about it, or don't worry if you can't, but
um I I uh I wrote a movie called Gabacho, and gabacho is called sort of like a it's slang for a white person. But in this case, it's ironic because I would be playing the gabacho, and I'm Latin. Excuse me. And so it's basically a story of a guy who's self-loathing, hates being Latino, and he gets accidentally deported to Mexico, and now he has to befriend all the people he hates to get back to the United States. So it's a story about race and identity, but it's funny. Unlike Gilbert, which is mostly a drama, this is just a satirical, laugh out loud, funny movie as it looks at race and identity from a funny perspective. And he on his journey back to the States, he meets a woman who is like this, you know, Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, tough, you know, power to the people type, and they become like a mixed matched couple, and it's like a weird homage to the great movies of Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, and becomes a road movie that's funny, and all kinds of crazy things happen. And yeah, so I'm feverishly working on that, and really hope to shoot it this spring. It's important to me because when you look at the world and how, with Brexit and with what's going on in the States and everything else, I just feel the world needs a laugh right now. With all due respect to the issues at hand, but we just need, that water cooler moment where we can laugh about race and identity, and still carry on the dialogue. So it's important to me to get this baby out.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it sounds great, and I completely agree. I feel like everyone needs to release, just like, just the valve just being tweaked slightly, so it can just let off some kind of steam, but still retain those conversations.
Yeah,
Because I think, the beauty for me of working with so many different filmmakers around the world and dealing with lots of different film festivals around the world is some of these stories haven't been heard yet, or they're not known, or they're shining a light on an area or a community that people just have no idea about,
yeah,
but they're being told and they're being educated but via entertainment. And I think that's part of the problem, is people don't read as much as they used to, but they'll watch a lot of stuff on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu. So if you can get it in a film or a TV show or a short film and put it in front of someone, that's a lot easier than getting them to read the latest article from NY Times or The Guardian.
Right.
So definitely. I mean, what I'm finding interesting is looking at people's kind of creative choices with their narratives. So if I said to you, what do you want people to feel after having watched iGilbert? What would you say for that?
Um, I would hope they would feel grateful for the experience and for the opportunity to reflect on where they're at and how they need to connect more with the people that matter to them. Um, are we just diving into our phones? I mean, I remember seeing this photograph of it was a millennial couple in bed, and you could just see like she's holding her phone and he or she's holding her her phone, and they're on opposite sides of the bed and they're just on their phones. And it was just like a modern love story, it's just two people on. So listen, whatever works, but I would hope that would be a part of it, that we just step back and look at where this is going,
Yeah,
and be grateful for who we are, and who we want in our lives, and how we're trying to nurture that.
perfect. And then how would you respond to that about the new feature that you're looking to? Because obviously it's very different in terms of tone, more so because it's comical, but another serious issue. But how would you respond? Would it be different for the other one?
I mean, I would feel that I mean, that's I hope they just laugh their asses off, and but at the same time, step back and say, this whole thing about race is there's only one race, that's the human race. Everything else is a social construct, and so maybe we should just, you know, let go of all this pent up air we have inside us about race, and realize that we have so much more in common than we want to realize.
Yeah. I think people always get surprised when they suddenly go, oh, they think the same as me, or they're
Yeah.
just like me. It's surprising. I just think there's so much energy expended on being hateful. It's just so much easier to be kind of more loving and appreciative and just embracing.
What's your
But
point?
but that's true. I'm British. I'm, effectively 100% polite all the time. So
And
um,
should be dead.
so where can people find you if they want to keep track of the next screening or other projects like the new film, and generally what you're up to? Are you on the
Well,
socials, or
I'm on the Upper West Side here in Manhattan. Just come on over. I got coffee. Um,
just going to the street and shout, Adrian?
or at social media at Taste of Adrian. And
Okay.
it's not that. It's just a taste, a sample. Like people get all weird about that name. It's at Taste of Adrian. Um, on Instagram, and Twitter, and yeah.
Fantastic. And lastly, I'm going to ask you for some advice, not necessarily about film, but a general one from your perspective. In the pandemic landscape that we're all in right now, and hopefully not for too much longer, what can you recommend to those who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the situation? And it can be an activity, it can be a book, it can be a film, anything. What would you recommend?
I would recommend taking the time to FaceTime with the people that really matter to you, and and don't be skimpy with the "I love yous." We can't hear it enough right now, and really, really, just try to really take care of yourself, because I consider that the fact that everything is temporary. This is going to pass, and so I keep telling the people in my life that this is going to pass, and you just got to hang in. Um, but again, really make a mindful effort to connect with the people that matter to you.
I couldn't have put it better myself. Definitely.
And that means it's time for a selfie. Thank you.
Ka-ching. Well, thank you so much, Adrian. It's been a real treat kind of talking to you about iGilbert and the new film and just hearing about your process. I think it's a real kind of galvanizing, insight into, how to make things happen in a creative sense, and, with very little money, and learning from mistakes, and only being a producer if it's somebody else's money. And I just think it's been brilliant to be able to hear those things from you. And thank you everyone who's watching this Q&A, and please do check out as many films as you can at the festival and keep on supporting indie films. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your generosity. Please send me your email. I'll keep you in the loop. And yeah, let's continue to support indie movies.
Yay!